Welcome to Stab the Dragon Productions for episode number 226, maybe. Today is Saturday, September 27th, 2025, and it is still National Bourbon Heritage Month, as well as Tolkien Week, as well as Oktoberfest. So there's a lot going on. Coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas, where it is currently 89 degrees. We are celebrating bourbon, American's native spirit, and I have been going through some James B. Beam Distilling products this month, focusing on the Old Granddad and Basil Hayden lineups. Today we'll be studying Basil Hayden Toast. There we go. Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Just the facts. This is a straight bourbon with no age statement, so it is at least 4 years old, weighing in at 40% ABV or 80 proof. This 750 milliliter bottle cost me $46.28 and only available at Specs Liquor on my side of Fort Worth. 63% corn, 27% brown rice, and 10% malted barley. Tasting notes: caramel, toffee, hints of butterscotch, sweetbread, almonds maybe, or walnuts, something like that. Toasted wood, just a little bit, vanilla, and hints of orange. I gave this bourbon a score of 85 and a letter grade for drinkability, an A, solid A. I need to explain that, and I'll explain that at the end because, there's some clear differences here from the Basil Hayden Subtle Smoke and the regular Basil Hayden. So that's my grading system is a little bit on the weird side. My recommendation: while I absolutely love and enjoy the taste of this bourbon, it is simply not enough different from the basic Basil Hayden to justify the extra $13. The Subtle Smoke was $20 more, and it was worth it to me. This one I'm not going to buy again and cannot recommend it for those on a budget. Now, if you want just a little bit more flavor and don't mind the extra 13 bucks, then great. This is still a solid A for drinkability. Details: history: Jim Beam introduced Basil Hayden small batch whiskey in 1992, and it was named for the famous Kentucky distiller whose family eventually produced the Old Granddad Distillery, a brand which Jim Beam eventually either bought, assumed through their parent company, or something like that. The other Beam small batch bourbons include Knob Creek, which starts at 100 proof, and Booker's, which is barrel proof, or Baker's, single barrel at about 107 proof. This expression of Basil Hayden Toast was first released to the public in 2021 and is a part of their permanent lineup. So this is not a special release of the Basil Hayden family. It's a core release. For history, 5 out of 5. Bottle, label, and marketing. Again, the bottle is fairly normal. It's a straight, but it's got a tapered neck. There's no flare on the neck. It's got a plastic cork with a wood cap. The label, however, is one of the best I've ever seen. It's designed to look like old parchment. You can look at the edges there, they're torn, and that's kind of an off-white color, so cream color, and then some orange and tan color down here at the bottom, I guess to look toasted, I guess. Now the metal band and the BH belt buckle, that's very well done. I guess that metal belt buckle is to resemble the metal bands that go around whiskey barrels, right? It's got this little extra label tacked on there that gives you some tasting notes and stuff. I can read that real quick. It says toasted wood, vanilla, light mouthfeel, finish, sweet caramel. Specially crafted, new toast charred oak barrels. Impart a unique flavor to, the new charred oak barrels impart a unique flavor to this Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey, revealing layered notes of toasted wood and sweet caramel, always with the subtle complexity for which Basil Hayden is known and loved. The gray thing there is a little bit hard to read. All right, so I can find no advertisements for this. You know, there are some advertisements for regular Basil Hayden, but for this one, I could not find any. You know, commercials cost money, and I think they spend all their money on the label here on the belt buckle. So 4 out of 5 points for bottle, label, and marketing. Appearance. Well, in the bottle, you can see that, you know, it's reasonably dark. But when I compare it with the subtle smoke, you clearly see the subtle smoke is darker. In the glass, you know, that's a solid 3. That's reasonable. I got no beef with the color. So appearance is a 3 out of 5. Composition. This 80 proof straight bourbon is thought to be just over 4 years old. It could be 5 or 6. And the unusual mash bill, 63 corn, 27 brown rice instead of rye, and 10% malted barley. Jim Beam has used this mash bill a couple of other times. There was a Jim Beam brown rice edition somewhere some time ago. In the Booker lineup, one of the little books has this brown rice recipe as well. Now, a portion of this bourbon is given the double barrel approach of aging it for a few months in a new toasted charred barrel and then return to the rest of the bourbon. So in other words, not all of this goes into the toasted barrels. And personally, I think that's a mistake. Supposedly, this mash and the toasting makes this even smoother than regular Basil Hayden. That's what the brown rice does instead of the rye. So we'll see. 14 out of 15 points for composition. Really can't fault them there. Nose. All right, let's get to the nose here. Now it's a light, sweet whiskey smell. Maybe a little bit of honey and caramel. I think buttery. Maybe buttered toast. There you go. Maybe some peanuts or peanut brittle. You know, you mix peanuts with butter and sugar and you get peanut brittle. I think I am getting something from that new toasted barrel, though. I really think it does add a little bit, a hint of wood in there. Now, I've not really done any toasted bourbons before, so, you know, inexperienced, but I guess I could do that here. This is the regular Basil Hayden. And so I'm going to pour a little bit here. And compare the nose. You can see in the glass that the regular Basil Hayden's is just a half a shade lighter in color. So that, you know, toasting it, aging it a little bit extra, it does impart some flavor and color. Yeah, the nose on the regular, I consider to be good. My nose is inadequate for smelling bourbon, but you know, this one, it smells good, decent, but I do think the nose on the toasted is a superior nose, but not that big. And so 8 out of 10 on the nose, which is the same that I gave the regular Basil Hayden, but I'm going to say it's slightly better. Taste. Now, it does have a very similar, despite the change in the mash bill, it has a very similar flavor to the other 2 Basil Haydens that I've had. I mean, I recognize this as tasting like Old Granddad or Basil Hayden, even though it's got rice instead of rye. Is that a psyop going on in my brain? I don't know. You know, it's supposed to be smoother in flavor. Maybe so. It doesn't have quite the spice that the others have. I mean, it's still a little bit spicy, but maybe it's just a hint smoother. I'm still getting peanuts and caramel, perhaps hints of vanilla and orange peel. So the similarities with Old Grandad are noted, but I think this is a finer bourbon, not rough no rough edges. And maybe that rice does that. Maybe it smooths some things off. So, you know, there is a difference, but it's still recognizable. You know, these are still brothers, right? Which is odd. I mean, when you think about the mash bill difference, I would think this would be very different. That's really odd. I don't know what to think of that. The toasted part, though, that is very subtle. I think I might recognize it more on the nose than in the glass. You know, I may have to do a taste comparison real quick with the regular. Yeah, the regular does have a little bit more of the spice. It's a little bit rougher, which is still a very smooth bourbon. But yeah, I can see the difference. And so this toasted with the rice is smoother, not as sharp in some ways, a little bit gentler perhaps. But the toasted thing is so subtle. I mean, I might be tasting it something, but how much is that the rice and how much is it the toast? I'm not sure. So it may be a little bit richer than the other Basil Hayden, but it may be smoother. The differences here are very minimal. So I still like the taste, which is odd. I mean, this is a rice bourbon. Go figure. 23 out of 25 for taste. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. The mouthfeel is definitely, I think, more oily than Jim Beam, the regular Jim Beam, of course. And for 80 proof, it is surprisingly rich compared with Jim Beam. The burn is mild. It's only focused in the mouth. And at 80 proof, there's just a hint of a little kick, but not much. I like a burn, and so in some ways, I think I'm going to prefer Old Grandad to this. I really like the boldness of Old Grandad. This may be too gentle. I don't know. The finish kind of leaves a bit of the spices and wood lingering for a kind of a medium to short finish. So again, I don't know that there's much of a discernible difference between the regular Basil Hayden and this toast. So mouthfeel, burn, and finish, I'm going to say 13 out of 15. Neat or mixer? Well, here's the difficulty. At $46 and 80 proof, I'm a bit hesitant to use this as a cocktail. Now I did, earlier I did make an old-fashioned with this, and my wife definitely, you know, she's not a huge old-fashioned, she's not a whiskey girl really, and not a huge old-fashioned person, but she likes the 80 proof, and so the old-fashioned kind of worked for her, and it worked for me. I mean, it was tasty. Okay, so it does work as a mixer, but again, the real problem is that $46 versus the $33 for the regular Basil Hayden. So let me drink a little bit more of this. All right, I've got these glasses numbered. Number 1 is the toast, and number 2 is the regular Basil Hayden. So I'm going to mix these up, and so instead of doing a cocktail here, I'm going to do a blind tasting. And the color difference is not great enough to really reveal anything to me. So I'm going to see if I can tell by the nose and the taste. So glass number 1 is the toast, and glass number 2 is the regular Basil Hayden. I'll start on the left. This is really hard. I'm going to say on my right is the toast, just off the nose. I don't know. So let me drink these left to right. I think that's glass number 2, the regular Basil Hayden. I think this is going to be glass 1. It is. Yep. Glass 1, glass 2. Okay. There's enough difference to where, and I've done this twice. I did this earlier, and I got the same results. So there is enough difference between these two for me to tell them apart blind, and that's unusual for me. I don't do so well on blind taste. But I would say the toast does have a slight advantage in some ways. Clearly the nose. It is a delight to drink, definitely, but I think that rice tamps down on some of the spiciness and the sharpness that I like. So I'm just not real sure if I'm liking this better than the Basil Hayden. I kind of think not. I think I prefer the regular Basil Hayden, but the nose is clearly better. So there you go. Neater mixer. I'm going to go ahead and give it 5 points because I did do an old fashioned with this and it was pretty good. So especially for those who like a lower proof in their old fashioned. So 5 points there. Price, value, and availability. Now here on my side of Fort Worth, I can only find this at Specs. Goody Goody did not have it. Total Wine did not have it. And the price I paid was $46.28, which is a bit high for what you get. And limited availability for me at least. $13 more than the regular Basil Hayden. So I just don't think that this is $13 better than the regular Basil Hayden. I don't think the value is there for me, even though in some ways I did like it better. It's a good bourbon for sure. I would never turn it down. Absolutely. So I like it. It's very drinkable, but really not for that price, I don't think. If they had toasted all of it or left it in the toasted barrels longer, then yeah, probably I would like it more. But this is my first experience with a toasted bourbon, so I don't know. 6 out of 10 for price, value, and availability for me. Bonus points. Again, this is a very good bourbon. The flavor is in my wheelhouse, even though it's got the brown rice. But it's not sufficiently better than the basic edition. To me, the toast is too subtle. It's too faint to justify the price. So, bonus points 4 out of 5. Giving me a total score of 85 points, and a letter grade for drinkability is an A. Now the regular Basil Hayden I gave a 90 and an A+. So I am liking this a little bit less, all things considered. Drinkability, this is still really good. It's an A. But I think in the back of my head, the smoothness of this and the price of this affects how much I enjoy it. It just does. So my final analysis and recommendation. Well, I absolutely love and enjoy the taste of this toasted Basil Hayden. It's simply not enough different from the basic to justify the extra money. The subtle smoke was $20 more than the basic, and it was worth it. If they had left this in those toasted barrels longer, I think it would be worth it. So this is one that I'm not going to buy again, and cannot recommend it for those more on a budget. But it tastes good enough, I would never turn it down if somebody offered it to me. So if you want just a little bit more flavor and extra good aroma on the nose, and you don't mind paying the extra $13, then this is great. Okay. But again, while the taste is very nice to me, it did come out ahead on the blind taste in some ways. It's just, I'm going to stick with the regular Basil Hayden and not get this one again. So, all right. Next, this is the end of the Jim Beam Distillery line that I am reviewing for National Bourbon Heritage Month. But I do have one more bourbon that I'll be reviewing on Monday, hopefully, and that is this one. Oak and Eden Bourbon and Brew for National Coffee Day on the 29th, Monday. And then International Coffee Day is October 1st, Wednesday. So why not do a coffee bourbon? And that's exactly what this is. Now, this is not coffee infused. The way Oak and Eden did their stuff is they got spires and soaked the spires in wine, beer, coffee, toasted, French oak. They did stuff with the spires. And you can't see it because this is so dark. But there is a wood oak spire in here that has been soaked in bourbon, or soaked in coffee. And that's what makes this so dark. And that's what gives it a great coffee flavor. I mean, this is truly remarkable. And so that's what's coming up on Monday. And then October's full of a lot of history stuff, so my American Catechism classes are going to take effect. So I'll be doing a lot of history stuff online. All right, this is Stab the Dragon, out here.